2020 Florida Prize in Contemporary Art has been postponed 1 year due to the coronavirus pandemic. In anticipation of the upcoming exhibition, we're doing virtual studio visits. My name is Hansen, Mulford. I'm curator at the Orlando Museum of Art.
And I'm Coralie, Claeysen-Gleyzon, Associate Curator at the Orlando Museum of Art. And today we're visiting with Anastasia Samoylova. Hi, Anastasia.
Hi.
So I understand you are at Dot 51 Gallery today.
Yes, so I'm here not in my studio, which has nothing currently because everything is in this exhibition. So this is my solo show at Dot 51 Gallery in Miami. It's from the series called Flood Zone. And it's about 22 works.
And you also have an exhibition currently in Germany at the same time, right?
Yes, so surprisingly,
everywhere.
It's just so postponed that now there's crossover. Yes, I have a show at Gallery Peter Sillen in Frankfurt, so that just opened last week.
Wonderful.
And is Dot 51 open now for the public?
Yes, we galleries have reopened. Some museums stay closed, but galleries have reopened. There's social distancing, and everybody's wearing masks, except for me right now. But everyone else is. So we even managed to have a socially distanced opening. So even that worked out. There were no hugs, no wine toasts, but actually it worked out pretty well because you were able to have sort of meaningful, short conversations as opposed to the usual small talk at an art opening. So
do you want to show us around a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Vizcaya, this estate in Miami, and I'll talk a little bit in depth about each one. This is my little book. It's not that small, but I was going to show you that one. So it was published in Germany by Shadow last year. It came out in the States this year, actually. And so this exhibition is the selection from the book with some additions. This is the main big space.
So all the work in Dot 51 right now is work that's included in the Flood Zone book?
Correct. There are some new additions that actually managed to shoot in 2020. So this is fountain that's sort of traveled around despite the COVID. So this is funny. This started out in London last summer, and then we opened my exhibition in Amsterdam in April at Gallery Carolina Green. This is my flooded garage, and so now this is in Frankfurt and here, International Life of Images, and that's I think the biggest benefit of working with this medium is its reproducibility. So I can print anyway. This is actually, so this was shot in 2019 and it wasn't included in the book yet. So now it's in the show. This is in Hollywood, Florida, Hollywood. It kind of looked like the Truman Show staircase to me. This is brand new, so this is from 2020. Venus from the Design District. This sort of goddess of beauty, but this is just a mirror inside a shop. It's sort of surface quality of things versus their contents. This is Tabby Ruin in Georgia. So this is in the book, and this was in the Biennale in Germany in February that I managed to go to, and then that included all the European hugs and kisses. Somehow I was okay afterwards. This one's called The Fluorescence. So this is from 2020. Actually, when I had my exhibition at USF Contemporary Art Museum this winter, this was on the drive back. And I always have my camera with me. So this is one of the stops, and this is salts, like salt deposits, peering through concrete. This diptych here. It wasn't really a diptych, but it was paired on the spread of the book, and now it's sort of is exhibited together all the time. So this is for the roots, and you see the soil erosion here, and this whole camouflage, and all of these are just encountered things. So I didn't set this one up. Unlike my previous work, Landscape Sublime, which was sort of tableaus that I would construct in the studio.
Would you give us a little bit of background on flood zone and how you started kind of exploring that portrait of Miami, really, and southern Florida?
Yeah, I think this would be sort of a critical first inclusion. So this image is of a flooded garage. And this is actually our apartment building. You can see my reflection, and it's actually quite important. So all of these prints are glossy. This has almost a mirror-like quality, like a daguerreotype almost, or black backed glass print. So this is after Hurricane Irma in 2017. We just went to explore the damage with my son, and that's him in bicycle helmet. And to me, this became sort of the starting point. It's a sort of metaphorical look at the issue. He's like the representative of the new generation who will really have to deal with this big time. So this started the project, and I've been shooting prior to that. Some of the images were made without a certain theme in mind. I was just sort of loosely responding to this new environment because I moved to Miami in 2016. So I'm a fairly recent transplant. And when I moved in June 2016, it was the hottest summer on record. I'm a Nordic person, so I came from Russia. And then I lived in Chicago area for some time. This was very different. And the camera, prior to that, my practice was all studio-based, but the environment itself sort of dictated the choice of medium.
Obviously, your photographs are dealing with climate change and how that shows sometimes in very subtle ways that we might miss or not think of it when we see them. But there also seems to be a real romance for South Florida, particularly Miami, the city of Miami. You're kind of captivated by the certain kind of nostalgia and beauty of the place.
Nostalgia is almost like a dirty word you never use with photography, but it's inevitable at the same time. I mean, what is better suited for recording things that will never be the same than photography? This is the sky in 2017, and it's not even a hurricane. This is just standing water. So we have rising sea levels, and I think there was a rain at some point. This is early 1900s, 1910s estate in Miami. And I just revisited it 2 months ago, and it's no longer the same. It's actually crumbling. Oh. And this was pre-Irma. This was made pre-Irma, and Irma made major damages on the property, some that were not restored. So this image is a record of its best state. I'm very much responding to, it's hard not to love this place. And you kind of just try to preserve what you love.
I was going to say, you touched a little bit on the the notion of that reflection, and I'm really interested in you talking a little more about this. You know, there's a lot of those photographs have that reflective element of the water because it's naturally there. It's one of the subject matters that you're photographing, but also there's also reflection in shop windows, in various architectural environments. And what do you use it for?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's certainly a thread. I'm just going to pick up from my book. There's over 80 images in this book, and I think over 50 contain water in some shape or form. So some sort of straightforward, like water seeping into this forest. This is one of the very few, actually, depictions of the consequences of a catastrophe. So this is post-Irma, but other than that, there are a lot more subtle. This is Miami River and a manatee right downtown. It's a metaphor. Flood to me is also a metaphor in sort of mythological sense, for a society that's really ready for change, major changes. And water. So here's some example, actually. I'm standing. These two, pool and water shade. I'm gonna flip that. Oh, actually, this is good too. So this is a pool with chopped up mangrove leaves, but at first you can't really tell because it just looks like a sort of pristine Florida pool. But there's a fairly violent act built into this picture, and it takes a bit of unpacking. So yes, I don't want a very immediate reaction, and as a photographer, but not a photojournalist, I'm really aware of sort of audiences' senses and sort of desensitizing my audience to the images of suffering. And what you brought up about water and reflection, so the glossiness of this print as objects, to me, it's an opportunity for the viewer to reflect in that environment, to sort of enter it almost. Right. Like you can see yourself, it's almost at full scale.
Yeah.
So you can see my reflection here, and that's the effects I'm demonstrating. The same here with this. There are certain motifs that are repeated throughout. So there are reflections, like you mentioned, and there are some aerial photographs, flora and fauna, and architecture, sort of streets, and people, but people mainly as sort of figures in the environment. There are very few portraits. It's mainly about, so it's like it's a human figure, kind of unified by the environment. And the project actually encompasses 4 states, so it's not only Miami. There's Florida, Louisiana, Georgia, and South Carolina.
Yeah, and there's something about those photographs that are they're very quiet and meditative somehow, and they offer a reflection. Also, I remember once you mentioned that you don't want to go for the alarmist pictures. You almost want it to maybe be a wake-up call, but that's just more internalized, maybe more reflective.
They're images of that give evidence of an impending catastrophe.
Right.
But they're things that go around us all the time that we're kind of used to now. It feels a lot like our current COVID disaster, where it sort of came from a distance and nobody really knew what was happening. And people still don't know what's happening. It's a catastrophe that's on us, but people are trying to find a way of making it normal and living with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you made that parallel. I've been thinking about that as well as I continue with the project. So actually, I just came back from another location yesterday this behind me here, the masks, you can see the feeling of sort of a bit of an anxiety, climate anxiety,
Yes.
just because the issue is invisible for the most part, right, throughout the year, apart from occasional phenomena that we experience. Doesn't mean that the issue isn't there, but to me the question was, how do I show the everydayness of that? How do I, not just show the immediate impact, where, again, the way it translates in the viewer's perception is that something that's so climactic, something that's sort of at the apex of disaster, implies quick result, or something that's, this is going to be cleaned up, the debris is going to be cleared, and then we move on. So how do you show the presence of something that is there, but not immediately visible? That was the challenge with the project. Speaking with my Floridian friends, it's such a part of growing up here. They're so used to, they would send me a list of things to do during the hurricane, and they said, and they would tell me what neighborhoods to avoid when flooding starts, or when king tide is coming, you shouldn't park your car in this street. So they sort of map out their lives around it. And so I was learning as I just went along with the project. I did not want to show it through sort of the tourist eyes. I arrive here and something happens, and we document the doom and gloom. So in that way, I wanted to bring in as many different eyes to this project as I could. And I think photography is sort of this, there's a degree of seductiveness that's built into the medium itself. The sleek surface, the light. So yes, the appealing quality is very much to open it up to a very, very wide audience. And the work has sort of traveled around quite a bit. So it's been written about in all kinds of publications that are not art related, for instance. So I wasn't taught formally, I wasn't educated in photography. I was actually studying to become an architect, and then I was studying painting as well. So I was looking at this Amazons of Russian avant-garde, Natalia Goncharova, my favorite, Rozanova, Popova, and so on. So that kind of aesthetic translated into sort of formal elements in the project. I think it's almost unmistakable. We can put them side by side, and you see the traces of Russian constructivism so well, especially those women who experimented quite a lot, especially Goncharova was known for her everythingism. That was, the time of Cubism, or what was it, Rayism, and she did everythingism. She just refused to get sort of pigeonholed into one type of the artist. So I admire that. And what I'm doing is sort of lens-based, but it's, as far as common thread, I think the awareness of the medium itself and the tools. But other than that, this is observational photography, and the Sublime was all tableau, studio-based for 7 years.
So I remember once you mentioned that you might want to do a film or a documentary.
Yeah.
Are you still thinking of doing that?
Yeah, I'm in the process. So this project took me 3 years, and it is ongoing. This book is sort of the first chapter. So this is predominantly Florida. I like to juggle several projects at once because of the sort of logistics with photography and them involving inevitably travel. But yes, videos. I have been working actively. It's not at the point where I can be showing them yet, but I'm experimenting and thinking, sort of leaning towards non-narrative film. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Thank you, Coralie.